Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of the Blue Collar Racing Podcast. We have a return guest. We got Damon Norman with us.
Hey, man, nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you back on. So, today's episode is going to be about tow rigs. So,
probably the second most important part of a racing operation.
Yes, you can have the best race truck in the world, and it does absolutely no good if you can't get it to and from the track. So, give us, what's your personal tow rig that you use?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the end-all, be-all is the best, but it's an '07 Ram 3500 Mega Cab long bed dually. It's a 5.9 48RE truck. It's pretty simple, nothing crazy. It's got an S464 and little fuel system and built trans, nothing nuts.
Nothing wrong with that. And with you being up there in PA and everything and all the hills, you ever experience any issues, or does it do everything you need it to do?
It definitely takes more driving than I would care to admit, being that it's supposed to be the tow rig. It definitely was a little better with, I actually had a fleece cheetah beforehand, and being that it's only a 4-speed truck, the quicker spool up was a little bit nicer with the cheetah, but I mean, it'd be great if it was a 6-speed truck, but it does what I need for now.
I understand that. And then my personal tow rig is a 2010 4-door long bed 6.7 with the RFE 68 in it. Personally, I love it as a tow rig. Some people might say differently. I love the 6.7 and the exhaust brake. I wish it was a manual at times, but I'm happy with the RFE 68. It does 68 things. You just got to be careful with them.
Yeah.
So if you had basically a unlimited budget, build a tow rig, what would your personal favorite tow rig be?
Well, I mean, I'm a Dodge guy, so you know I'm going to stay true to the Rams. But, I mean, if I had any budget in the world, I would say keeping it as a pickup truck, you know what I mean, because obviously anything in the world, a toter home with a stacker would be insane, but I don't need all that. Unlimited budget would just be a newer limited dually. I mean, those new trucks are so nice. They tow well. They're smooth. Honestly, they're quiet, which isn't always the worst thing. And they're comfortable, man. The exhaust brake, the 6 speeds. I know the Ford and GM guys, they're going to be all about, but the 10 speeds, and I get it. They're nice, but I'm a Dodge guy, so, you know, I'd stick with the Ram.
All right. I think mine would be probably a 2014 to 2017, maybe 2018, 4-door long bed 3500 Laramie Longhorn with a G56 in it.
For sure.
That would just be the perfect tow rig in my opinion. You can pretty much do anything you want with it.
Yep.
So if you had to have a Ford, what would you be picking and why?
Well, man, I'm going to start sounding like I'm repeating myself because those newer 10-speed 6.7s, they are really nice. I mean, it's hard to deny how well those trucks pull and how well those trucks use the power they make having all 10 speeds. They hold power really nice. They stay in the power really well. And the amount of time I've had driving them, they're pretty smooth overall, and they're pretty slick trucks, so I can't take anything from them. So if I had to tow with a Ford and, you know, I had any budget, it would definitely be one of the newer, I guess if you will, the Illuma Duties with the 10 speeds.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. The only thing I would pick is I like the 450s. I'm not sure why I like the 450s more than 350s, but I love the 450s, so I'd probably do this, just have it in the 450.
Yeah, good point. I always forget about the fact that they have those as like a normal pickup. So yeah, that's a solid choice.
So what about, we already went over Dodges. Both of ours are Dodges. So what about a Chevy? What would you be picking?
Well, again, it's just going to sound like the lazy pick now because the newer L5Ps, man, they're good at what they do. But I guess to give you an answer that's not a newer truck, if I was going to pick one that wasn't a newer truck, I actually kind of like the early LML body style. The interior is super comfortable. They're good looking trucks, and like I said, they're extremely nice to ride around in.
Yes. I would probably, I've done some towing with a LBZ, and I'm not going to lie, it towed pretty decently.
Oh, yeah.
And if I was to pick an older Chevy, it would probably be the LBZ. I liked the way it towed. It handled good. I had no complaints about it.
Fair enough.
So what kind of aftermarket stuff for tow rigs do you think is good to have? And then also what aftermarket stuff for tow rigs that are, you see people with them and you're like, it's really not necessary?
I think the upgrades that are worth it and help. If you have a lighter duty truck and you're towing, like a big gooseneck, I think airbags can definitely be your best friend on some of those trucks. Especially like on the Duramax trucks, the LMLs, like I mentioned, I think a fuel system is definitely something you should have. And then, like, I personally like having gauges in all my trucks. So just like even one of the edge monitors is nice for a tow truck because even if they're a touch behind on the data acquisition, it's not hurting anything in your tow truck for the numbers to be half a second late. As far as the overrated accessories, me personally, and I know I'm going to get some hate for this one, I am not a big fan of putting them big, heavy 10-lug wheels on dualies. I know they look nice. I get it, the guys like it. But, man, I know how much power they're sucking up just to look cool. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, actually one thing I didn't think about that's a good upgrade to have is good lighting. Because there's nothing worse than leaving a race late at night and having crap headlights and having to drive through the dark with your tow rig with awful headlights.
My picks for making it better, airbags for sure. A good fuel system like a fast is always good. A way to keep your coolant in check. The newer trucks are fine. The older trucks have issues at times. Sometimes just upgraded radiators, upgraded intercoolers. Just trying to keep your temperatures in check with everything is a big help, especially in hills, in the summertime. A lot of the events we go to are in the middle of summer. It's hot. Just trying to keep everything in check is always good. Gauges are good. And I like to have some sort of air compressor.
That's a good one.
If it's truck mounted, if it's something if you have auxiliary power, if you can just have some kind of air compressor for a tow rig, it's always a big help.
Couldn't agree more. That's a good one. I didn't think about that one.
And then for my overrated stuff, I'll probably get some hate for it, is you don't see it as much in the gooseneck world, but the bumper pull world, the huge, obnoxious hitches. Sometimes you just don't need all that. Like, some of them are very useful, and then some of them are just over the top. You're just buying the name at that point. And that's about all I
Your
have.
10-way adjustable hitch.
Yes, adjustable. They make nice adjustable hitches that don't cost 2 paychecks. And they make some that are just way overdone and powder coated and all this, and like at the end of the day, it's a hitch. So, what about wheels and tires? Like, what do you prefer on your tow rigs? What have you seen last? What would you not go with? Any wheels that you would not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to dualies. I'll leave the single wheel trucks to you. The hard thing with dualies is we don't have that many options for wheels that aren't like a 10-bolt, going up to the big rig style, if you will. And I personally am not a fan of them. And like I said, my truck's a 4-speed truck, so everything counts. I don't love the giant, heavy 10-lug type wheels. I know how much power they're pulling away from the truck, and I also just don't like having that many lug nuts, having the 10 lug nuts to the wheel and then the 8 lug nuts from the adapter to the spacer or whatever. It's too much. It's making the tow rig way more work than it needed to be. If you like them, cool, but personally on, my tow rigs and the ones I've had over the years, I try to keep it simple with just a direct bolt wheel. Usually, honestly, on tow rigs, I don't do anything too fancy. How the current truck just sits on fuels, which love them or hate them, I don't care. They weren't all that crazy expensive. They look nice enough. I just run black wheels, so I don't need any forged, polished, nothing like that. They're just black. What I wish guys would be more, what they pay more attention to is, especially, like I said, with dualies, is spacers. Guys end up with spacers all the time, which I get it. On a dually truck, it's hard with our limited wheel selection. You want to run a little bit meatier of a tire, and then, they don't fit, so you go to spacers. But what I wish more than anything is that guys would buy good spacers so you don't see these guys losing outer duals or even worse, losing both, or especially a front wheel. So, I mean, if you're going to run spacers, please just run a good set. And I mean, other than that, I don't see anything too crazy on dualies. I mean, there's styles I personally don't like. Some guys like stuff a lot wider than me. And, hey, man, it's your truck. Do what makes you happy.
For me, wheels on a single rear wheel truck, nothing irritates me more than seeing somebody tow a gooseneck on like 14 wides with stretch tires. It's like a time bomb. Like, I know people do it all the time. Awesome. But for me, my goal is to get the race truck to the event. I don't care how great the tow rig looks getting there. I want the race truck there so I can actually compete in the event. I mean, some people tow on them fine. Good for them. I don't trust it enough. I don't recommend 14 wide towing because you're just putting a lot of stress on everything for kind of no reason.
Actually, something you brought up that's a good point that I missed is if you're going to have a dually, have tires that are rated to do what you're doing with it. You bring up a really good point about the stretch street tires and stuff there. You see all these dualies running around on, and like, I mean, I have street tires on mine. They're load range F though, 420Vs. But definitely if you're going to have a truck to tow heavy with, put tires on it that are designed for that. Don't just buy the cheapest tire you can find because it was a good deal.
Exactly. Like, I tow on 12 wides. I'm comfortable with towing on 12 wides. I've never had an issue with it. I think 12 wides is that it's at that line for towing heavy. I think 14s you should lean away from towing heavy. 12 wides, I feel like you're still pretty safe. Now, of course, if you want to be the safest, stock wheels are what it's designed for. But I like towing on 12 wides. Tire sizing doesn't really matter. I mean, you're just robbing horsepower the bigger you go. You're just more rotational mass. But I like to keep it 12 wides and below. Brands, there's so many brands out there. I wouldn't say go out and buy the cheapest brand wheel. Look at the load rating for the wheels. Every wheel manufacturer has a load rating for the wheels. Not a lot of people look at that. It's something, if you're going to be towing, I recommend when you go to buy those wheels, look up the load rating for the wheel itself. Because if you're getting something that doesn't have a great load rating, and then you have problems with the wheels, at the end of the day, it comes back on you because you didn't do the research. And that's about the only tips I got for single rear wheels. Try not to run spacers. That's also a no-no. But, I mean, honestly, spacers on a single rear wheel in general, I just feel like it's a no-no. Because if you just want to get wider, just get wider wheels.
Right.
I mean, the wheel sizes they make today are ridiculous. You can get 16 wides and everything. Like, if you need to be any wider, I don't see the point in it.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of good points there. And I mean, the only thing I guess, I kind of missed was, like you said, I mean, when it comes to the tow rigs, it's definitely not something you want to cheap out on because that's the truck you're spending all your time actually riding in. So if the race truck's got to be a little bit slower for a little bit to have a safer tow rig, I mean, you're hauling friends and family in the tow rig. The race truck's just going down the track. You can always make the race truck faster later, but keep that tow rig safe.
Exactly. And probably one thing both of us kind of missed on is brakes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Don't cheap out on brakes. It is easy to make anything go fast. And this goes for race trucks. It goes for everyday vehicles. It goes for tow rigs, anything. You can drive anything down the road and get up to speed. If you can't stop it, you're no good. It'll ruin your day every time, especially with trailers, race trucks being 100 plus miles per hour at the end of the track. If you can't slow it down, you're going to have a bad day. And don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point.
Put good brake parts in all of your builds. To me, brakes are probably the most important part about a vehicle. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but when you drive something and your brakes go out, you have a new understanding of how important they are. There's a whole new understanding when you cannot stop.
Yeah, nothing makes your day worse than hitting the brake and not slowing down.
That thing just goes right to the floor and you go, uh-oh.
And that's another good reason, like with newer trucks, y'all's exhaust brakes are awesome. I mean, if you can have a truck with an exhaust brake or if you can add an exhaust brake, it's definitely something worth looking into on a tow rig. Because, I mean, the tow rig doesn't have to be fast. We're not racing to the track. We're racing at the track.
The exhaust brakes that's the only reason I have not swapped turbos on my tow rig is because I enjoy the exhaust brake that much, especially when I'm towing the race truck. So what do you got for tires? What do you recommend? What do you not recommend for towing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we talked about earlier, I'm not going to be the guy that tells you not to tow on street tires. I mean, like I said, I run 420Vs. The biggest thing is, though, with tires, just make sure they're rated for what you want to haul. Don't get a passenger car tire on your dually and then wonder why you're chewing through tires and having blowouts left and right. And the same goes for trailers, man. Don't put some super light tire on your trailer because it was cheap, because the moment you have them blow out, it no longer makes sense to save that money when you're stuck on the side of the highway changing out tires, hoping the rest of them make it home. There's nothing worse than a long day at the track ending up with a long day on the side of the highway because you're losing tires because you saved $50 a tire.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I say get a quality set of tires. I personally don't tow on mud tires. I do not feel like they last at all as soon as you put weight on them. I like sticking to an all-terrain. The hybrids between the all-terrain and the mud tires, I've towed on 2 sets of those. They have been fine. Street tires, as long as the load rating is good, I say you're golden.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are the must-haves that you like to have after you get the truck up on the trailer? What do you like to have? Like, for me, I love having axle straps to tie down my truck. Some guys use chains and binders. What is your go-to? What do you do for tying down a race truck, tying down your equipment on the trailer? Always want to have with you in case of whatever could happen.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good thing to talk about too. Is, I mean, you got to remember, being that we're talking about tow rigs and everything, that you got to have the money to have the good stuff to make the trip there and back not suck, right? So, like me personally, I do run straps, not chains. I have nothing against chains. I spend too much time painting this stuff and making it look nice to be throwing chains on it. I run axle straps, and I think they're 2 or 2.5 inch wide. The big ratchet straps, nothing crazy. Definitely though, for a tow rig setup, as far as your pack out, if you will, I think definitely having good straps, some kind of good lighting, whether it just be lights on your trucks you can see on the trailer, or like we have lights literally on the trailer. Some kind of good way to get the truck on and off of your trailer. If your trailer doesn't have ramps built into it, don't be the guy trying to use wooden ramps. Even a light diesel race truck is too heavy for some sketchy nonsense like that. And definitely, have some tools with you. I mean, some of these races we're going to, especially you and I know we're going, 5 hours away or so. You want to have some tools with you, some basic impacts, or, even breaker bars. You don't have to have the money for impacts, but have some sockets, have some tools to run them, have a jack. Definitely have a spare tire for the trailer. If you can, it's even better to have a spare tire for the truck and trailer separate. And just the stuff to try to keep you off the side of the road, or if you do, God forbid, end up on the side of the road, try to have enough stuff to get yourself safely off of the road. And definitely just, some maintenance items, having normal stuff with you to deal with odd things as they come up. If you unhook your trailer at the racetrack, for example, have some basic tools if the hitch doesn't want to release or the hitch doesn't want to reattach. And, just if you're planning on parking the trailer somewhere, it's definitely a good idea to have something with like 4x4s or something to put the trailer legs on, because it's not always going to be somewhere dry or parked, and the last thing you want is to unhook from your trailer and have it sink, and then you can't get back underneath the dang thing to go home.
Yeah, I like to have tools with me, but honestly, anybody just starting out, you can go to Lowe's and buy a 50-piece tool set and a breaker bar and be out of there under $60 and have enough tools to do basic stuff. I like to one thing a lot of people do not carry with them, I always like to have one with me, is a spare belt for the motor. Because if you're on the side of the road and your belt breaks, you pull over to the side of the road, especially with a Cummins, you lose your water pump, lose your alternator, your power steering and everything. Just having a simple extra belt with you gets you back on the road, and you can get to somewhere safer, or you can get all the way home just from a belt breaking.
Yeah.
And then I use axle straps and ratchet straps too, mainly because with the truck being 4-link now, something I highly recommend because I got caught with it a few years back. I didn't have one. It was a freak thing, but having wheel chocks. I went, raced, transmission went out. I had second gear. That was all I had. Nothing else worked. Everything else was neutral. Put the truck on the trailer. I was having a hard time getting everything strapped down because everything was neutral. It wanted to roll, even up on the trailer, because the trailer wasn't sitting dead level. Just having wheel chocks. They're simple enough to throw in the bed of the truck, and if you ever need them, you have them.
That's a good one.
I also like to have a floor jack, because a floor jack and a piece of plywood, that's how I change my tires on my race truck when I get to the event. And then if you ever have a tire blowout on your truck or trailer, it is great to have a floor jack with you, because you can jack it right up on the side of the road, change your tire a lot faster than the jacks that come with your truck.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, I think that's about all we got for tow rigs. Unless you got anything you want to add?
Not really off the top of my head. I mean, I don't really want to go off too deep in the entire ridiculous setup we carry. I mean, we've been at it for a while, so to say that we bring a lot of extras for the ridiculous situations we've come into is putting it mildly. But the only thing I would say to finish off that topic is, just you don't have to spend $1 million to have a good setup, but just spend a little bit so you feel comfortable with, where you're at and what kind of situation you're in.
Be aware of if you're traveling 5 hours, try to map your stuff out, and also check the weather. If you know it's going to be super hot, try to take a tent or umbrella. If you know it's going to be cold, you might not need the tent and umbrella, but make sure you have everything you need to deal with the cold at that point. Just what the weather might be where you're at compared to 5 hours away can be a big difference sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm saying with you, I could get way deep into the whole everything you can take to an event. I take way more than what I need. But
yeah, and I don't want people to think they need, the whole truck bed full of stuff that we take. But, we also take enough stuff where we can help other people out as well. And, I mean, I think most guys will get to that point, but I don't think you need to set that as your immediate priority to have everything known to man.
Well, that's not all I got. Unless you got anything else, Damon.
No, I think that's a pretty solid one for today.
All right, well, I appreciate it. All your links and everything will be in the post, and if anybody has any questions for you or needs anything, hopefully they will reach out to you. And until next time, everyone, that will put an end to this episode of the Blue Collar Racing Podcast.